Kids, what's up? Professor Thomas here. How to Think Like a Genius English workout number 2. Find this video on YouTube. Just simply do a Google search for this title. You're going to come up with workout number 2. Here's what we're going to do in this quick video. We are going to do a review of some basic concepts, and then I am going to show you how to think like a genius. Number one, first thing that we need to do is we need to talk about some grammar rules. So real quick, first thing we're going to talk about here is 1 comma. 1 comma is going to be an independent clause, comma, dependent clause. The dependent clause is going to be like a little miniature definition of the word that sits right here at the end of our independent clause. I like soccer, comma, a sport played on a field, period. A sport played on a field is more information about the word that's right before there, soccer. 1 comma. Second thing we'll talk about here is 2 commas. 2 commas. You're going to have a subject here. This is going to be non-essential information, and this is going to be another clause here. So dependent clause, and dependent clause. Let's talk about football. Football, comma, sport played on a field, comma, is fun. Sport played on a field is like a mini definition of the word that comes right before the comma. This is non-essential information. You can cross it out. Football is fun. 2 commas. Boop. Number 3, a dot dot. A dot dot is like a smashed equal sign. What's on the left and the right is going to have to equal the same thing. Best way to think about this is A, a list of stuff, or B, a description. You're going to have a clause here, a dot dot, and then you're going to have a clause here. I like Mr. Chung, a man in Hong Kong. A man in Hong Kong is like a mini definition of the word that sits right before that. That's a description. I like colors, dot dot. Red, blue, green, and yellow. Red, blue, green, and yellow is like a mini definition of the colors. That's the word that sits right on the left-hand side. Double commas. Third thing we're going to talk about, or fourth thing we're going to talk about here, is something I call hazy. Remember, Razor Blade says simple is best. However, you better make sure that you know what you're talking about. So I always stay away from words like it. And when you look in your answer choices, it, them, these, those. Be aware that those are very hazy. You don't know what that means. It made me mad. What made me mad? When you look at your answer choices, you want to try and stay away from answer choices that are hazy. 4. Last thing we'll talk about really fast here is Mr. Chung's belt buckle necklace. On his belt buckle necklace, he has his name, Prepisan. It starts with a P. A prepositional phrase falls in between dashes, commas, and brackets. So a prepositional phrase is non-essential information. Dashes, commas, and brackets, remember, separate the noun from the verb. Mr. Chung, comma, a man in Hong Kong, comma, is funny. We could put dashes, commas, or brackets in here. This is non-essential information that gives you a mini definition of the word that sits before. You see the consistency here, kids? Everything that's non-essential usually goes right back to the noun and kind of defines it like in a little mini definition almost. All right? This is the noun and this is the verb. This prepositional phrase or comma splice or dashes or brackets, parentheses, is nothing more than non-essential information about the word that's right before that. It can be crossed out. Now, if you go back up here, prepositional phrase, Mr. Chung, Prepisan, goes in between here. A preposition falls in that non-essential area. So let's take our noun, Mr. Chung, and put our verb over here, is funny. Prepositional word that starts a prepositional phrase. I call this a throwback. It's a short word. It's one word. The ones I teach you are in, of, and with. That starts a prepositional phrase. It's non-essential. In. Mr. Chung in Hong Kong is funny. Mr. Chung is funny. In Hong Kong is a prepositional phrase that's non-essential. That's a mini definition of the word that precedes what we see here. Of. Mr. Chung of Hong Kong is funny. Of Hong Kong is a prepositional phrase. It started with throwback word. Mr. Chung with dark hair is funny. Mr. Chung is funny. With is a word, throwback, that starts a prepositional phrase. There you have it, a quick review. Now let's get into the workout. So basically what's going to happen here is you should have this test in front of you, and we're going to do some selected problems, and I'm going to show you how to think. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at practice problem number 2. All right, when you look at practice problem number 2, the first thing that you should do is you should come in here and select an answer choice that you want to work with. For me, I come over here and I take a look at answer choice F because there's a period. Now, roll your eyes back in your head and say to yourself, what is a period and how do you use a period? On the left, before the period, what do you have to have? And on the right, what do you have to have? Check it and see if it works. Answer choice G, there also is a period. So read up to the period, read after the period, check. Answer choice H is a dot comma. Roll your eyes back in your head and ask yourself, what's the definition of a dot comma? Then check it. For me, what I like to do is I like to come over here and I like to simply label independent and dependent. Whenever you trace in where the punctuation is on the page, you're simply going to label it independent or dependent. Then with your pencil, just erase what you traced in on your answer sheets, on your answer test booklets. All right? Go ahead, stop the video here, and answer problem number 2. Problem number 3 is a problem we're going to work. When you come over here, the first thing I do with problem number 3 is I look at my answer choices and I see that I have a comma after and. I think about how you use commas. I read from the beginning of the sentence to where the comma is, and I trace the comma in on the page where it is and. Read to here, label it independent or dependent, and then read the second part. Label it on your page independent and dependent. If it works, put a dot by it. If it doesn't work, simply cross it out and move on to the next choice. Then for me, I'd look over here. I see there's 2 commas. What's the definition of 2 commas? Go back up here. Read from the beginning of the sentence. Label independent or dependent, and every part component. So what's in between the commas, is that independent or dependent? And then at the very end, which is going to go onto the back page over here, look for commas everywhere in the non-underlined portion as well. All right, that's how we're going to do practice problem number 3. So go ahead, pause the video here. We'll come on back and take a look at the next problem, which is 13. On to problem number 13. I'm just going to walk you through some selected problems. So if you look at problem number 13, we're going to see that problem number 13 is right here. And in problem 13, go ahead and pick an answer choice. For example, answer choice D is a dot comma. Roll your eyes back in your head and say, what is the definition off of my note card for a dot comma? Then go back to the beginning of the sentence up here, starting with I think. Read this and label this independent or dependent. Then, where the punctuation I traced in here after study, read the rest of the sentence here and label that independent or dependent. Then move on to the next answer choice. If you like it, put a dot by it. If it's wrong and not used correctly, simply cross it out. Here we have 2 commas. Roll your eyes back. Say to yourself, how do you use 2 commas? Trace in where the commas are. Label it independent or dependent. Where these commas are. For example, if there's 2 commas, what's between the 2 commas, is it independent or dependent? On the left of the first comma, is it independent or dependent? And on the right of the last comma, is that independent or dependent? Check it, see if you like it. If it doesn't work, go ahead, cross it off. Answer choice B, it looks like there's 1 comma. Think of what rule reminds you of 1 comma. Come and trace it in, label it independent or dependent, and then what we're going to do is cross out answer choices that are incorrect. Once again, answer choice A, there's 1 comma. Go ahead, independent and dependent, trace in your commas now. Pause the video here. We'll come on back and we'll work on the next question. Problem number 14, if you look at problem number 14, if you come over here, you see the word in, you see the word in, you see the word of, and you see the word with. That reminds you of Mr. Chung prepositional phrases in, of, and with, all 3 of the most common ones. How do you use a prepositional phrase? Okay, think about what you just learned in the video before we started working on this problem. Then come over here and see we have the word in. This does what to what? Think about that. Check and see which one works the best. Pause the video here for problem number 14. We'll come on back, take a look at the next problem, which is 16. Problem number 16, if you look at problem number 16, this is what's called a combo problem. We're going to need the definition of a dash, a comma, a dot comma, and nothing. First thing you want to do is pick an answer choice. For me, I look at J. J says a dash. I trace in a dash after keys. Then I come over here. I look for other commas in the sentence. I see that there's a comma right over here after chemical, so I highlight it, trace over it, whatever you want to call it, and then I come down over here and I see there's a dash here. Think about labeling independent or dependent. Plug in your answer choices and check them. Here is a dot comma. What is the definition of a dot comma? Check it and see if it works. Here's a comma and here is nothing. Pause the video here. Think about your rules of grammar as you look at your answer choices. Trace in where that punctuation is. Number 2 and number 3 is to simply label independent and dependent and see which one of these answer choices is the best. Pause the video here. We'll take a look at the next problem, which is 20. Coming on up. Practice problem number 20. If you look up here, here is our problem number 20. First thing you want to do is pick an answer choice. I come over here, I see that there is, in this answer choice here, this is the sentence that's in question. Think about what the answer is for 19 and then plug that one in. So what one is the best one for this? Then come back down over here and we want to trace in commas. So in answer choice F, there's a comma here. So you'd have to read from here all the way to here. Now don't assume that answer choice A is correct. You have to answer this question first before we get to the commas. Answer 19 first, then come back over here, pick a choice. I picked answer choice F. F has a comma here, so I highlighted it here. Then I read from here to here, independent or dependent, and then I read from here to the end, is that independent or dependent? Think about 1 comma and the rule that you learned with Professor Thomas. What is going on with 1 comma? What's on the left? What's on the right? Then you come back over here, you take a look that we have a comma in here after machines. Read from here to machines, label independent, dependent, come back over here. We've got independent and dependent here. We've got independent and dependent here. Trace in your commas, label independent and dependent, see what's going on, then choose the best answer choice. Remember your comma rules, kids. Problem number 20. Pause the video here. We'll come on back to problem number 24 in a minute. Problem number 24, the bottom down over here, first thing I do, I look at my answer choices and I see that F has nothing and G, H, and J have a period. So think about how you use a period. Come back up here, read from the beginning of the sentence, which is afterwards, to the end where that period would be here, and then label that independent or dependent, and then read from here to here and see if it's independent or dependent. Right away, you're going to plug your answer choices in and see what the definition of a period is. What do we have to have to the left of a period, and what do we have to have to the right of the period? Check and see, do we need a period there, or can we just go without it? Pause the video here. Use the prior knowledge that we have to answer practice problem number 24. Problem number 26. When you look on your answer sheets, we see that practice problem number 26. Right here, we have a bunch of things going on over here. So first thing I did is I came over here, I looked at H, because H, there's a comma after workplace. What do? I come back to the beginning of the sentence up here. I see that there's a period there, so I don't need it. Then I come over here, and then this 26 is here. I read from the beginning of the sentence to where that comma is here after workplace. I label it independent or dependent, trace in where it would be, and then label it independent, dependent, and then look at the second part after workplace, independent or dependent, up to the comma after mine. 2 commas here. Think about the rule. After I did that, I came over here and I saw that answer choice J just has 1 comma. So I traced in where that is. I lightly erased my page. Then I traced in the new comma, labeled it independent or dependent, and then I saw, did that work as well? If I liked it, I put a dot by it. If I didn't, I crossed it out. Over here, it looks like we have a comma after workplace, and then we have this here. So read it independent, dependent. If you get it down to 2 answer choices, look a little closer between the 2 answer choices and make a better decision on what we have there. Answer choice 26. Think about what some of the words that we see over here. When we look over here, it says isn't, and it says it is, and answer choice F says it is, and here it says my office clean. Think about the rules that we talked about. Answer 26 now. Next problem, kids, it's practice problem number 31. 31, the first thing that I did is I came over here. It said she became, who became, and omit. First of all, I'm thinking about the rules of grammar. When you look over here, what's the difference between she became and who became? And. Think about what we just talked about. Answer this question, problem 31. Coming on back, the next thing that we looked at here, kids, is practice problem number 37 on page 7. Down over here, first thing I did over here is I came over here and I saw that the beginning of the sentence up here, there's a comma after years. I traced in the comma there, highlighted it. Then I came over here and I picked a choice. For some reason, I just went to B. B, there's a comma after calm. I traced in where it said calm. Then I read from here to the first comma. I labeled that independent or dependent. Here, I read from here to here, independent or dependent. And then I read from here to the end, independent or dependent. Okay? Notice there's a period here. Check and see, it looks like in that particular case we had 2 commas. What's the definition of 2 commas? Go ahead, check to see if that's used correctly. Then I pick the next answer choice here. There's a comma after here, which is calm again, but there's no comma here. So that means that there's 2 commas. Answer choice, no change. There's 3 commas. Okay? Use your comma rules to answer these questions, but make sure that you take where the comma is here and trace or highlight over where that comma is here. Then you have to go with your pencil and label independent or dependent depending on what you see here. Okay, remember what you learned earlier, practice problem number 37. Go ahead and answer this question. One last thing, if you look over here in the non-underlined portion, do you see that word there, kids? Think about what we learned on that. Pause the video. Next problem, kids, it's practice problem number 39. First thing I did here with problem number 39 is I looked at my answer choices. It's D, it. Then C says Dr. King, and then B says supporters were being told. And then here it says supporters were told. I thought about the rules of grammar. Then I looked at my answer choices and I selected the best answer choice for this particular answer. Problem number 39. Pause the video here, do that. We'll come on back and take a look at 46 next. Kids, next problem, it's practice problem number 46. 46, the first thing that you do always is look at your answer choices. Where do I start? Over here, I like a dot comma because we know what a dot comma is. Think about a dot and a comma. Come over here, you want to see answer choice H. I see it after moved, I'm going to throw a dot comma in there. I trace in where the dot comma is. I read from the beginning of the sentence to where the dot comma is, thinking about the rule. Does that work with independent and dependent? Then I read the second part from here to the end of the sentence. Is that independent or dependent? Okay, check to see if a dot comma is used correctly. Okay, also keep in mind that there is a comma here. Then the next thing I saw that we had a comma over here, so I traced in after reporters. I read from the beginning of the sentence to reporters, labeled it independent or dependent, and then looked at the second half. Again, independent or dependent. You might have to answer problem number 47 to answer 46, so sometimes you have to go out of order, either up or down, in order to get the right answer. Think about your grammar rules, kids. Over here, no comma. Here is a comma and a dot comma, and here is a comma here, and here is a dot comma here after reporters. Pause the video here, take a look at those problems, answer choices, come up with the best one. Moving right along, kids, as you turn the video back on, it's practice problem number 51. Here's what I did when I came to 51. First thing I did is I looked at no change on, by, for, to. What kind of words are those? Then what I did is I remembered what that was. I won't tell you, but just remember what it was. Once you remember what those words are, what they do, then I came over here and I went and looked at this, and then I looked at this and saw which one helps me do the rule of grammar for practice problem number 51. Pause the video here. Go ahead, do that. We'll come on back and take a look at the next problem, which is 52. Pause the video. 52, the next thing I did is I came over here and I said, let's go ahead, take a look at this answer choice here. Here we have the word, the beginning of the sentence is the word she. Here is after moderator, there's a comma, so I took my pencil and I highlighted that. Then I read from the beginning of the sentence to moderator and stopped at the first comma. I labeled that independent or dependent. Then I looked at answer choice no change, read from here down to the period and labeled that independent or dependent. Then I asked myself, is that correctly used? It's one comma. I took a look at answer choice G. G has the word and then I put it in here, read from here to here, independent or dependent, and then I started off and blah, 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 and then asked myself if that works. Answer choice H instead of and, it says as, so I plugged in as. I read from here to here, independent or dependent. Once I put in answer choice H with as, read that to the end of the sentence, and then answered that as independent or dependent. J means to cut it out, razor blade style, so just simply put your finger over it there, and then read from the beginning, label it independent or dependent, and then from here to the end, independent or dependent. Pause the video here, take a look at problem 52 now. Practice problem number 56 is the next one on the docket, kids, here. If I come over here, look at problem number 56, I notice that we have commas here after history. We have commas after women. No commas in answer choice J, and a comma after history up here at the top. So first thing I do is pick a choice. Randomly, I just said F. There's a comma after history. I read from here to here, label it independent or dependent. Then I read from here to here, one comma. How do you use one comma? Check and see, does that work according to what you learned with the professor? The next problem I did here was G. G has a comma after history. That means we have this Missouri's with an apostrophe at the top here. Make sure that you know the rule here. This is a special rule. We didn't talk about it in this video. However, the answer will be something to do with that. Look at that. Read from here, independent to dependent on either side, and check that answer. Here's a little bit different because we have a comma here after women or woman. So read from here to here, trace in your comma, label that independent or dependent, and then from here to the end, independent or dependent. See if that works. Here there is no apostrophe S, so we have to know what the apostrophe S means and what it does. That's a rule. Answer choice J, there are no commas, so we just simply read from here all the way to the end and see, do we need to take a breath or do we automatically kind of like pause a little? If you pause to kind of, because it's a long sentence and you feel like you're taking a breath, it tells you that some type of punctuation is actually going to be needed in 56. Pause the video here. Let's take a look at that problem and we'll take a look at the answers after. Problem number 58, kids, it's on page 11 at the top up here. It's a combo problem. First thing I did over here, I came over here and I looked at J. J looks like there's a dot comma after wrote. I put a dot comma in there. Beginning of the sentence is here. There's a comma there. I traced over that as well. Read from here to here, independent or dependent. Then I come over here and I see that after wrote, there is a dot comma. Read from here to here, independent, dependent. Read from here to here, independent, dependent. From here to here, independent or dependent. Bunch of stuff in there. See if that's used correctly, dot comma. Then I came over here, we have a dot dot after wrote. Remember, roll your eyes back in your head. How do you use a dot comma? Go ahead, plug it in, draw in your dot dot, and see, is that correctly used? Independent, dependent, and so forth while we continue on. The last two choices here in 58, there's a comma after wrote and no comma. So if there's a comma, that means we're going to have to label independent or dependent. If there is no comma, you're going to have to go ahead and read from here to here and then from here all the way up to here. Remember, kids, it's very important in the non-underlined portion to make sure that you highlight and trace over where the commas are. Here, there's one I have to go over here after retired. Here, there's a comma, I have to go ahead and trace that. And here, there is a comma here. Think about the rule of grammar and check it. Problem 58. 61. Which of the following alternatives to the underlined portion is not acceptable? This is kind of a combo problem as well too. So here we go, 68. There is nothing here, and that means that this is correctly used. This is what we call a stock statement that's correct. Use this as our springboard to get the right answer. I always circle the word least, not, or except, because that means that 3 of these answer choices are going to be used correctly that are similar to this. One of them is going to pop off the page a little bit. So I come over here right away. I see it says in order, that asks, asking, and to ask. For me, I check answer choice C because there's a comma. I come over to store, trace in where it's store, independent, dependent, independent, dependent. I notice that there's a dash there, and then there's another clause here. Is this independent or dependent? I use my answer choices. Check them to see which one is the best fit for this particular problem. Finally, kids, it's the last question here. It's practice problem number 74. Practice problem number 74 looks like we have commas here and a couple word differences here. So we have spoke, spoken, and commas after Spanish or no commas after Spanish. First thing I do, pick a choice. I like to start with the commas punctuation. I come over here after Spanish. I trace in a comma, read from the beginning to the comma I traced in after Spanish. I label it independent or dependent. Then I look over here, independent or dependent, to the little Havana, and I trace over where the comma is here. So independent or dependent, and then here the last clause, independent or dependent. I check to see if that works. Coming back over here, I do the same thing over here. Or can I go from where the comma is here after little Havana all the way from here to here? Is that independent? And then this dependent? Do I need 2 commas in the sentence? 1 and 1? Or do I just need 1 here? Think about how you use 2 commas and how you use 1 comma. Go ahead and pause the video here for the answer to answer problem number 74. Kids, that's it. That is our review. Go ahead, look in the back of your practice test and correct your answers. There'll be individual answers going over the problems at the Combine on Wednesday or Thursday. Thanks for watching, kids. Bye for now. If you have any further questions, please feel free to talk to Professor Thomas or any of the assistants. Bye for now.